How's it going? My name is Dalton, and a couple months ago, I played a round of golf at Golf Digest's 10th hardest course in freezing conditions after only practicing for 11 days prior to it. To give you a little bit of context, let me just start from the beginning. I love golf and have played for most of my life, but I never really was all that great since I never had the time or resources to get coaching or to play more than a couple times every now and then. But over this past summer, I actually worked at a golf course, so you know what that means. Free golf every week at the nicest course in my hometown. So within the span of 3 months, I cut my handicap in half. I was basically on pace to make the PGA Tour in like a couple years at most. But reality set in when school started again and I no longer had the time or resources to play as much as I was over the summer. By November, I realized that I had not only lost the skills that I gained over the summer, but I was somehow worse than I was before the summer even started. For whatever reason, the slice that I thought I had fixed was back and as bad as ever. I was thinning a lot of my shots, and the shots that weren't getting bladed into the next town over were only going about 85% as far as I was hitting in the summer. I basically felt like Kevin Costner from Tin Cup, but before the part where he just turned his visor backwards to fix literally everything. While all this was happening, I was just thinking, it's whatever. It's cold right now, I'll just fix it in the spring when it gets warm again. But that's when my friend Drew, who you'll see later in this video, invited me to play at Tobacco Road. And being the man that I am, obviously accepted his offer, even though I hadn't hit a pure shot in like 4 months and had a total of 11 days to figure it out. So I'm not going into this super confident, but I figured at the very least it would make for a good video to follow my training. And I gotta say, I think it's pretty cool looking back at how I progressed throughout this whole thing. I did all the narration during the training too, so what you hear is what was actually going through my head the same day as the recording. And just a little disclaimer, in a couple of the sections, I'll start to talk about technical stuff like I actually know how to play golf. But in reality, I'm in no way an expert, so don't take what I say as any sort of instruction. But without further ado, let's go to day 0, where I don't actually learn anything, but it's just kind of like an evaluation to see where I'm at to begin with. Here I am at my local driving range, and honestly, the day went pretty well. I think that you'll see right now that I'm slicing a lot of them, like I said. But distance-wise, I really couldn't see where the ball was landing, but because it was so bright and the grass is really yellow. But I think I was still hitting it a little bit short, but I really started to notice what my issues were with my swing specifically. Just from looking at it myself, I could see that my head is really dipping too far and then coming up at the end. I think is making me hit it thin a little bit, and also just losing distance because I'm putting too much loft on it. Either way, lots of issues with my swing there. But as far as my drives went, my drives were pretty good, so that's a good thing to look at. But I did get a range card, so that gives me 18 total baskets, and if I'm going to be going to the driving range every day after this, that should be more than enough to handle my training for this video. So that's good. And there's this app that I use to analyze my swing, and honestly it's a little bit glitchy, so I don't 100% recommend it, but it does give me a little bit of a starting value to see what all is going on with my swing. And so I took a couple samples, and it seems like the main issue is definitely my head movement, which I kind of already had an idea of, but this really just reinforced that. Also, hip rotation is a big one. It's really glitchy with my arms, so it said that my lead arm was bending too much, but as you can see, it really isn't. So I don't think that that's as much of an issue. So now that I have this initial evaluation, I can get to work on actually improving my swing. So today was supposed to be day 2, but yesterday it was snowing, so I couldn't golf at all. And I was also exposed to COVID, but I'm pretty sure I don't have it because I haven't shown symptoms. It's been a few days, so I was just being extra safe yesterday. So today is actually going to be day 1, but the problem is it's just as cold as yesterday when it was snowing. But it is nice outside, so that should be better. But I am playing a full round of golf with my friend, so you're going to be able to see really how bad it is just from a little bit of the footage. For now, I'm going to go hit a few balls into the net and see how my swing is looking and see if I can make any last minute adjustments before I go and play. So here's my buddy Drew. He's the one that actually had the idea to play at Tobacco Road. And he's a little bit of a better golfer than me, so he's going to play a little bit better, but overall, both of us played pretty bad for ourselves. You're going to see right here that I hit a good drive, but then I shanked it. Chipping was not that good. It came up short. Here's a nice little chip from Drew, though. And then after I chipped, got a 2-putt for a double bogey, which I wasn't upset about, and that kind of said something about how bad I am at golf. But here we are in the second hole, hit another good drive, and then another shank with my hybrid, and then I actually shanked it 2 times in a row. That time I was hitting from a divot, and it bounced on the cart path. I literally didn't hit a single good shot after that first drive. Ended up with a triple bogey on the second hole, 2-putt there. So then here we are on the third hole, which I really enjoy most of the time, but that one was a low worm burner, and it actually ended up in a decent spot. So I had an 8-iron about 130 yards in, and then the slice came back.
2 hours later.
Here we are on the 15th hole, if I remember correctly. It might be 14th. I can't remember this course that well. This was actually the last hole that I recorded before my battery died, because I haven't gotten a replacement battery yet. So I'm just going to give a quick summary on what all happened off camera. I really stopped keeping score after the front 9 because it was that bad. And if I had to guess, I was probably averaging a little bit under a triple bogey each hole, which is about 120. I still got a lot of work to do, so we're gonna have to see what happens tomorrow. So today I was watching the Good Labs video when they mentioned alignment sticks, so I went to my local Dick's Sporting Goods and bought myself a pair to use on the driving range. Once I got them, I started, messing around with them, using them the way that they were supposed to, and figuring things out. It was weird because I just kept on hitting the same shots every time, and nothing really seemed to be changing, so I knew that wasn't necessarily just my head movement this time. There had to have been something else. But I got frustrated, and I thought, you know what? Let's just see if another camera angle will help. And what I discovered was incredible. So up until contact, my lead arm is actually bent. I should have listened to that app because it pointed it out earlier and I didn't believe it. It should be straight the entire way, and that's what's been causing me to go over the top and what's been contributing to my head movement. It's basically the root of almost all the issues with my swing, so this has to be the first thing that I address. And just for reference, here is a slow-mo video of my favorite golfer's swing, Colin Morikawa. And notice how his lead arm is completely straight up until right here, where it just bends a little bit at the very top, but then immediately becomes perfectly stiff and straight through the swing, basically the entire way until he's up at the top again. So that's my goal, is to have a swing like his, because there's no one else that does it better than him. So with that in mind, I started doing this drill where I slow down my tempo a lot and only go back as far as I feel comfortable without bending my arms at all. And towards the end, I was maybe going back a little bit further than I wanted to, but overall it was a pretty good experience. And I actually realized that even with like a 50% backswing, I was still hitting it just as far as I was earlier that day with a full swing, because that's just how messed up my swing was before I realized this. So I kept doing this drill to get my backswing to go further and further back without bending my arms. But as soon as I was getting the hang of it, I ran out of golf balls. So I did the unthinkable and got myself another 2 full baskets of them. So here's a video of me hitting another 100 balls with just my 7-iron. I actually only used my 7-iron for this entire session. The reason why I did that was because I didn't want to keep changing clubs and then have to adjust just for the change in shaft length, and ball placement on top of, the million things that I have to deal with my swing anyways. So I just worked with my 7-iron since that's my favorite club. But the way that I did this session, after I finished up my drills with the last basket of balls, I would take as many shots as I could with a full swing until I felt something wrong with it, and then I would go back to just that half swing drill until I felt confident again, and then I would go back to the full swing and just alternate between that until, I was hitting more and more consistently each time. And by the end of it, I was hitting balls around 135 to 140 yards, which is still about 10 yards off from what I was hitting in the summer, but a lot of that could be accounted for temperature. It's about 40 degrees colder now than it was 6 months ago, on top of, range balls being terrible. At least distance-wise, I'm pretty close to where I was before. But I still have a lot of work to do, especially with that lead arm staying straight. It still isn't 100% straight, but it's definitely a lot better than it was before. And I think that if I can really work this out, then I've got a pretty good chance to play well, which is incredible that I made that much progress in one day. At the beginning of this session, when I was hitting with my 7-iron, I was getting it maybe 120 yards compared to at the end of the session, 140 yards. Like gaining 20 yards to your distance in one session is incredible. I think overall, this was the most progress I've made so far. So going into the next day at the driving range, the mentality was pretty much the same, where my main focus was in keeping my lead arm straight all the way through. So I continued doing this drill where I take a few shots just at 50% to maybe 75% speed, and then work my way up to a full swing where I still was having issues. I was adding loft and losing distance, and it's just a lot of growing pains, and that's just kind of something that comes with it. But practice makes perfect. But then I started to realize that even when I was keeping my arm straight all the way through my backswing, I was not getting as far back as I needed to, and I was still having issues with slicing the ball. And I realized that was coming from my hips not moving at all in my swing and just relying on my upper body to power through my swing. So let's just take a look at a slow-mo of my swing so I can tell you a little bit more about what I'm seeing there. So here's an example of my swing where my hips aren't moving at all and they're left open at the end, and that's why it slices that way. But I also can't get back as far as I need to. So that's what I've really started working on in this session. By the end of the day, I didn't feel as though I made nearly as much progress as I did the day before, which is completely fine, because today was really mainly identifying the issues and starting to work to improve them, but knowing that it's going to take a little bit of time to get my muscle memory to work and to completely reconstruct my swing, because that's what I'm doing. I have to basically demolish everything that I have been doing in the past few months and make it look completely different in a matter of a week. So if I don't see that much progress in the first couple of days, I just need to remind myself to stay optimistic. I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to keep this day quick, but day 4 was pretty much a lot of the same as day 3, except it was a lot colder. It was like 35 degrees, so I had on a rain glove on my other hand, and just kept on going with the same drills, still working on getting it to feel more comfortable, keeping my front arm straight and increasing flexibility. And by the end of it, I was really starting to get into a groove. I think that if it wasn't so cold, then I probably would have gotten an extra bucket of balls, but I was starting to lose feeling in my hands, so I decided to call it a day. Except while I was in the car and I got a little bit warm again, I was like, you know what I haven't been working on? My putting. So then I went to this other putting green up the road and practiced for about 5 minutes without my gloves on, because you're not supposed to putt with your gloves on. And then my hands were literally shaking the entire time, so I was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. And then I just left. So I called it a day there. To start out my day, I went to the gym to work on some lower body workouts. I haven't been to the gym in a while, so I went with pretty lightweight, but I did 4 sets of squat at 135 pounds, 10 reps, and then I did turning box jumps to get those hips activated. But overall, pretty easy workout, but a nice little warm up to the rest of the day. After that, I didn't really have time to go to the driving range, so instead I went to practice some of my short game. Being 100% honest, this first set of balls that I hit was about as bad as it could be. I mean, just look at it. Chunk, chunk, bladed, bladed, chunk, chunk.
Broken, gone, broken.
Starting out, my shots from the sand were also pretty bad. I think I ended up with only 1 or 2 balls that landed on the green. Once I got warmed up though, I really got into a groove where I was starting to hit them a lot closer. I was still hitting, a few ducks here and there, but there's something about golfing in blue jeans. People say that that's not what you should wear when you're golfing, but first off, it was like 35 degrees again, so I needed to wear long pants. Second off, they're comfortable, and no one's even around to see, except, the internet. But anyways, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and it really was a confidence booster to see myself hitting actual good golf shots that I felt like I could control. Because especially if I can't get my distance back, these short shots are going to be really important when I get to Tobacco Road. And even after I recorded all this, my camera died and my sand shots were improving, and my 75 to 90 yard pitches were also pretty good too. So I think that this was a pretty good day, and a really important day too, because as you could see a few days ago at that last round of golf, I was struggling in my short game, which is pretty uncharacteristic, so it was nice to get that confidence back. Day 6 was about the worst day that I've had so far for a multitude of reasons. But the first one being just having one day off from the driving range doing my short game really kind of threw me off at the beginning. So I was struggling with my swing a little bit, but I was, starting to figure things out, but it was really windy. And even though it wasn't that cold, it was just super annoying because my hair kept on getting in my face. My hat fell down a couple times. There was a guy right next to me that was smoking, and since it was windy, it just went all straight towards me. So I was just kind of hitting in a cloud of secondhand smoke the entire time, which is really annoying. I just hate the smell of tobacco. I don't know why people enjoy that, but whatever. And you'll see here at the end, it was so windy that my camera fell over and the screen shattered. So now I have a broken camera, which I still can't get fixed. I'm waiting for a screen protector just to hold it in place because it's a $300 fix, which I can't afford right now. So, that's kind of a sign that if you want to help support me, just subscribe so that I can start making money off of these videos and pay for my camera to get fixed. But I was just really upset because this is like the nicest gift I've ever had, and I just kept hitting bad shots, and at the end of the day I just felt terrible. So I don't really think I gained anything from this day. Since my camera was broken the day before, I chose not to record myself on day 7, but honestly, it was one of my best days. I went to the driving range and I was just smacking it every time. Like, I was hitting it pretty decently far, and I guess it was just because the pressure of having a camera on me wasn't there anymore. But the next day I decided to record myself just with my phone, and there were some bad shots and there were some good shots, which is better than the last time I played on a course, which was just all bad shots. But I still need to work a lot more with my irons and also my putting. But other than that, I think that I'm pretty good in my short game and my tee shots. So on day 9 and day 10, I skipped because there was a little bit of an issue with scheduling. We thought that it was going to be way too cold on Saturday to play, so we rescheduled it for Monday. So I thought, I have a couple days to rest, so I won't have to practice now. But then it was supposed to snow on Monday, so then we had to move it back to Saturday, which is still going to be really cold. But basically I did 3 days worth of practice on day 11 in one day, which I thought was a good idea at the time, but it's kind of the same concept as putting something in the oven that's supposed to be in there for an hour at 300 degrees and instead putting it in for 20 minutes at 900 degrees. So obviously didn't work out super well, but I hit 200 balls on the range, and then I went and practiced at the short game facility for about 2 hours. So that's what you're watching right now. And honestly, I didn't feel that bad about it. I felt like I was still getting in pretty decent shots, but at the end of the day, I was just worn out. Like, I was just a little bit sore everywhere. So you'll see later how that affects my game on the next day.